This is an interesting ornament I'm working on right now. That's a little bit of a different style than either traditional chip carving or even most of what I do, and that's because the design is not really mine. It was inspired by this design, which is a dot painting style that my sister actually did, and thought that was kind of a cool look, so I figured I'd translate that to chip carving design. And one thing to note is all of these are just solid purple, but they do have this flat kind of background and then a raised kind of sparkly paint in there that is obviously not duplicatable with chip carving. So for some of these just kind of larger circles, in order to change it up and make it a bit more interesting, I made those rings with a flat spot in the middle and then carve out the ring rather than just a solid circle. And just a personal stylistic choice there. I was having some issues with getting the results that I want on these kind of circle areas up here, so I'll show as I get carving how I adjusted that to clean that up better. And the last thing I wanted to point out is these circles in the middle here are obviously very small, and I considered the idea of just using a nail to kind of do that impression. And so you can see here the difference. This is the nail that I use for adding just kind of the stippling dots, and so I pushed that in and kind of rotated around to give that sort of idea. But you can see there's still this really just clear dark circle in the middle where it really went deep. It's a pretty sharp angle compared to the chip carving angle. And then I also did an example of the chip carved circle right there. And so seeing those two, I decided I do want to try to do the actual carving. It'll be a bit of a challenge and kind of fiddly with how small those circles are, but I think that result looks better than using the nail, so I'll go ahead with doing that. So I'll start with these circles out here, and what I was doing was starting here, kind of the grain is running this way, and I'm starting just left of that grain, I mean left for me anyway, of that grain, and coming around. But that was not, I kept having these issues with the grain kind of ripping and giving marks there, so I started moving where I start, and so now I'm starting more here, right kind of along the grain area as I get that depth, and just kind of hold the knife still. So not too bad. There's a little bit of a bit to clean up right there. And then from there, kind of continuing the edge of that circle into this tail, so it's one continuous chip. And right down the middle. And these are slightly changing size from kind of the small, medium, large, but really pretty small difference in size between those. This one's actually a little bit easier to just be able to see that line of the circle and follow with the knife. So that one I came off the pattern line a little bit. Let's see if I can clean that up. Circles are especially challenging to clean up. If you don't get them right on the first time, I find they really are not cooperative on going back in a second time. So it's definitely, if circles like this are something you're interested in incorporating in your carving work, definitely something to practice and get comfortable with. Getting smooth, clean circles, and I think, based on what I'm seeing, probably something I could practice a little bit more myself. Even been a little while since I've done this style of chip, this technique. That one's pretty good. I'll do the last one of this section and then move on to another area here. I apologize if I'm getting out of frame at all, or if my hand's getting in the way. I've got the camera pretty close and zoomed in as much as I can to give the best view, since these are all pretty small chips. They can be tough to see. So I'll do this last ring in the middle here. It's the exact same kind of copy and paste as the ones on the outside, same design, same size. It's one thing about chip carving, is it's nice if you can have repeated elements that tie it together. So that's kind of what I did with this one. Looks like I was a bit inside the pattern line all around that, so I'll see if I can kind of get back onto the line that I'm aiming for here. It's, as I said, really small and tough to necessarily see exactly what the knife is doing relative to the pattern lines. Alright, so then I'll do a couple of these little tiny ones here as well. And I'm going to start on the inside next to this one, because this is a really small bit of wood, and so I want to make sure I carve that first when it's got the support. Whereas if I were to carve that last, it might have a tendency to tear. And these are so small that I'm not even really sure how much of an effect the grain direction is going to have, you know, because I was saying with these circles I wanted to start kind of right around along the grain, but here I'm kind of ignoring the grain direction, starting next to the circle I already cut, and then kind of just twisting the wood to do the work. I think these are turning out really well so far, so I'm glad I decided to do this route instead of the nail technique. So just more of the same around all the small ones, and then continuing what you've already seen for the rest of this.